Ex-security guard exposes P. Diddy's secret surveillance mansion, revealing hidden cameras, locked rooms, and a culture of fear and control. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. The former security guard, Marcus Thompson, sat nervously on the witness stand, his hands clasped tightly together. For years, he had been part of the silent machinery guarding the gates of P. Diddy's sprawling estate. Now, after a decade of silence, he was ready to speak. "I wasn't just a guard," Marcus began, voice steady but laced with tension. "I was a witness to things most people don't know existed." He paused, eyes scanning the courtroom, finally resting on the defendant, Sean P. Diddy Combs, who sat composed, unflinching. Marcus described the mansion's luxury, but hinted at the darker secrets hidden behind its walls. There were rooms no one was allowed to enter, locked doors with no explanation, and cameras, hidden cameras everywhere, not just for security, but to watch us, to watch the guests. A hush fell over the room. Whispers died, all eyes glued to Marcus as he revealed the first cracks in the glamorous facade. He swallowed hard. "For years, I kept quiet. I followed orders. But the things I saw, the invasions of privacy, the control, it wasn't right. It wasn't safe." The judge leaned forward, signaling the weight of what was unfolding. Marcus took a deep breath. The truth was coming out, and nothing would ever be the same. When Marcus Thompson first walked through the iron gates of Sean P. Diddy Combs' sprawling estate, he thought he was stepping into a new chapter of his life. A steady paycheck, a respectable job, and a chance to be part of something bigger. The mansion's grandeur was undeniable. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, walls adorned with priceless art, sprawling gardens that seemed endless under the California sun. It was everything he imagined, and yet, something felt off from the very beginning. Marcus was hired as part of the elite security team. His job was straightforward: protect the property and its inhabitants, ensure privacy, and keep things running smoothly. But the reality was far more complex. "There were places in that mansion I was told I would never see," Marcus recalled, voice low with a mix of awe and fear. "Doors that remained locked, corridors that staff dared not enter. It wasn't just about privacy. It was secrecy on a level I hadn't imagined." The estate was divided not only by floors, but by layers of access. Senior staff whispered in hushed tones about restricted zones and forbidden wings, areas so tightly controlled that even some longtime employees had no clue what went on behind those locked doors. The rules were clear. Questions were dangerous. Staff who pressed for answers found themselves mysteriously reassigned, demoted, or simply vanished from the employee roster overnight. It was an unspoken law. You stayed silent, or you disappeared. At first, Marcus tried to rationalize it as celebrity privacy. After all, high-profile clients demanded discretion, and a mansion this size needed strict security protocols. But the more time he spent there, the more uneasy he felt. One night, while checking on a minor disturbance, Marcus ventured down a rarely used hallway. As he passed, he noticed something strange: cameras hidden in plain sight. Not just the usual bulky security cams mounted near entrances, but tiny, almost invisible devices concealed inside smoke detectors, picture frames, even light fixtures. These cameras didn't monitor hallways or entry points. They were focused directly on private rooms. "It was chilling," Marcus said. "These weren't just security cameras to protect the property. They were watching the people inside, watching every move, every word." The feeling of being constantly watched gnawed at Marcus. The mansion was more than a home. It was a fortress built on surveillance and control. Rumors among the staff grew. Some spoke of private sessions, held behind the locked doors, attended by powerful figures and select guests. Others whispered about visitors who arrived, but were never seen leaving the same way. The mansion was shrouded in a culture of fear and silence. Employees were trained early on that discretion wasn't just preferred, it was mandatory. The consequences of breaking that code were severe. Threats were veiled, but unmistakable. Loss of job was the least of one's worries. Marcus told how the surveillance extended into the most intimate spaces: bathrooms, dressing rooms, even bedrooms. He recounted discovering cameras hidden inside air vents and smoke detectors that captured everything. This wasn't security. It was invasion, he said. And the footage wasn't stored for safety. It was weaponized. Marcus shared chilling examples of how the recordings were used. Footage was sometimes played to intimidate guests, to blackmail or coerce them into silence. Staff who expressed dissent were threatened with exposure. Careers were ruined, reputations tarnished, all to maintain control. One incident still haunted him. A fellow guard who asked too many questions was fired without explanation and vanished from the scene. Marcus never heard from him again. The mansion was a gilded cage, beautiful from the outside but trapping everyone within in a web of secrets. As he faced the jury, Marcus's voice grew firmer. Behind every smile, every handshake, every party, there were eyes watching, not to protect, but to control. For years, these secrets were buried beneath fame and fortune. Today, Marcus was breaking that silence. Marcus Thompson's discovery of the hidden surveillance was only the beginning. As his time at the estate stretched on, he realized just how deeply the mansion was wired. Not just with cameras, but with a vast, intricate network of monitoring devices designed to record every moment, every word, every movement. These weren't your typical security cameras, Marcus explained to the court. They were tiny, hidden in the most unexpected places. Behind paintings, inside smoke detectors, even embedded within pieces of furniture. You wouldn't notice them unless you knew where to look. He recounted how the surveillance system was controlled from a central room, a discreet, windowless chamber staffed by technicians who monitored the feeds 24/7. Marcus wasn't allowed in that room, but over time, he caught glimpses of the high-tech setup. Rows of monitors, digital recordings archived meticulously, and a staff that treated their work with unnerving seriousness. The cameras weren't just about safety or security. They were about control, he said. Footage was reviewed, sometimes selectively leaked or shown to manipulate guests or staff. If someone was becoming a problem, if they questioned the system, there was always a tape, a moment, a mistake that could be used against them. Marcus shared how this pervasive surveillance created an atmosphere of paranoia. Everyone knew, or at least suspected, that their privacy was violated. Conversations were carefully guarded. Meetings were held behind closed doors with heavy curtains, and whispers filled the hallways about the power of the unseen eyes. The surveillance wasn't limited to public areas. Bathrooms, dressing rooms, and private suites were all wired. Marcus recalled an incident where he was assigned to check on a guest's suite after a report of unusual activity. Peeking inside, he noticed subtle signs of tampering with the room's electronics, small devices hidden in vents and behind mirrors. The invasion was complete, Marcus said somberly. No one was truly alone. No moment was private. The footage was reportedly used to keep people compliant. Marcus revealed that managers and executives sometimes held private sessions with individuals, showing them videos to remind them they were being watched, that secrets didn't stay hidden. The effect was chilling. Many guests and staff lived in constant fear, their actions and words scrutinized to an unbearable degree. Some artists stopped expressing themselves freely, self-censoring to avoid potential blackmail. Staff, who questioned orders or tried to uncover more, were quickly silenced, either by threats or by being removed. Marcus also described how the cameras served another, darker purpose. Recordings were allegedly sold or traded among a closed circle of powerful individuals, extending beyond the estate itself. The footage became currency in an underground network of influence and control. The ex-guard's testimony opened a window into a world few outside knew existed. A world where privacy was a myth and freedom was a facade maintained by fear. He recounted the day he finally saw something on tape that shook him to his core. A recording of a private conversation between high-profile guests discussing deals that went far beyond music. The room fell silent as Marcus recounted the chilling details, the implications of power and corruption hidden behind closed doors. It was clear then, Marcus told the court, that the mansion wasn't just a home. It was a stage for manipulation, where everything and everyone was under control. His testimony began to shift the mood in the courtroom. Jurors and observers grappled with the reality of what was being revealed. The glamorous world they'd admired was now stained with shadows of surveillance and coercion. Marcus knew that speaking out came with risks. He had already faced intimidation and threats, but the burden of silence was heavier. This system had to be exposed, he said, because no one deserves to live like that, under constant watch, under constant control. Marcus Thompson's testimony began peeling back the curtain on the chilling reality of what the secret cameras had captured. It wasn't just idle surveillance. It was a meticulous, sinister documentation of power, manipulation, and exploitation occurring behind the mansion's closed doors. He described the footage as a haunting montage, private conversations laden with threats, clandestine meetings that blurred the lines between business and coercion, and moments where guests and artists were caught in vulnerable or compromising situations. One of the darkest things I saw, Marcus told the court, was footage of high-profile gatherings where deals were made. Not just about music, but about control. People were being threatened, manipulated. The conversations weren't just casual. They were cold, calculated. Marcus recounted a time when he was accidentally exposed to footage of an altercation between two executives. One threatening to ruin the other's career if they didn't comply with certain demands. The tension was palpable, the fear in the voices unmistakable. He also spoke of videos that showed artists and guests at their lowest points. Intoxication, emotional breakdowns, moments of personal struggle. This footage, Marcus explained, was weaponized to ensure compliance. If someone stepped out of line, he said, there was always a tape, a moment, a secret ready to be used against them. The guard detailed stories of artists who had been confronted with footage of themselves or their associates, forcing them into silence or cooperation. They'd be called into meetings where those tapes were played back. It was a reminder, you are always being watched. Marcus also addressed the terrifying pattern of disappearances. Several young artists and guests had vanished following events at the mansion. While direct evidence linking these cases to the surveillance was scarce, the timing and circumstances raised serious concerns. People just stopped showing up, Marcus said. Phones went unanswered, social media went dark, and those who tried to ask questions were quickly shut down. He described the psychological toll the constant monitoring took on everyone involved. The paranoia was real. People second-guessed everything they said or did. No one trusted anyone else. The cameras didn't just record, they controlled. Staff worked under constant pressure, knowing any misstep could be caught and used as leverage. Marcus admitted to living in fear, always watching his back, knowing the system was rigged against anyone who dared to challenge it. What made it worse, Marcus added, was how normal it all seemed. The cameras were hidden so well, and the mansion was so vast, it felt like you were trapped in a fishbowl, everything exposed, yet no one spoke of it. As Marcus spoke, other witnesses began to back up his testimony. Former staff members, security personnel, and associates who had escaped the mansion's grip. Their stories painted a consistent picture of surveillance, control, and fear. The courtroom grew heavy with the weight of the revelations. The glamour and fame surrounding P. Diddy's estate had masked a ruthless system designed to trap and silence. Marcus's voice hardened with resolve. This wasn't just about watching. It was about keeping people in line, about maintaining power through fear and secrecy. His testimony shattered illusions. The trial was no longer just about a famous figure. It was about exposing a culture of abuse hidden behind luxury. As the courtroom absorbed his words, Marcus knew the fight was just beginning. The truth was out, but the battle for justice would be long and hard. After years of living in fear and silence, Marcus Thompson stood ready to shatter the walls of secrecy that had encased P. Diddy's estate and its dark underbelly. The decision to speak out wasn't easy. It was a choice that came with heavy risks and even heavier consequences. But Marcus knew that the truth had to be told. In the courtroom, he painted a vivid picture of the culture that ruled the mansion, a culture built on fear, silence, and control. There was an unspoken code, Marcus explained, his voice steady, but heavy with emotion. You didn't talk about what you saw. You didn't question the orders. If you did, you risked your job, your reputation, maybe worse. He detailed how staff who tried to speak up were systematically silenced. Some were threatened with legal action, others with career destruction, and a few simply disappeared from the scene with no explanation. The message was clear. Loyalty wasn't optional. It was survival. Despite these threats, Marcus began to reach out quietly. He found allies, former employees, assistants, and even a few artists who had been caught in the same web of surveillance and control. These voices joined his, slowly forming a growing chorus, demanding justice and accountability. Marcus shared the emotional toll of his choice. The isolation from friends who feared association, the relentless anxiety of possible retaliation, and the weight of knowing that powerful forces wanted to keep the truth buried. Yet, amid the fear, there was a flicker of hope. Outside the courtroom, the revelations ignited a media firestorm. News outlets dissected every detail. Social media platforms erupted with support for the whistleblowers, and activists called for sweeping reforms in the entertainment industry. The story transcended celebrity gossip, becoming a serious discussion about privacy, power, and abuse. Federal authorities launched investigations into the alleged illegal surveillance, privacy violations, and coercion linked to the mansion. Lawsuits piled up, and industry insiders faced intense scrutiny. The case began to unravel the tightly woven fabric of influence that had protected the estate's secrets for years. Marcus described how the defense tried to undermine him, painting him as unstable, disgruntled, or seeking attention. They brought up inconsistencies, questioned his motives, and tried to discredit his character. But with mounting evidence and corroborating testimonies, their efforts only highlighted the truth's strength. His courage inspired others trapped in similar situations to come forward, breaking their own silence. Support networks formed, legal protections were discussed, and a broader conversation about the abuse of power in entertainment emerged. In the courtroom, the mood shifted. The judge and jury were not just hearing accusations. They were witnessing a battle for justice and truth. Marcus's testimony became a beacon, illuminating dark corners and giving voice to those who had been silenced. Though the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, Marcus no longer felt alone or afraid. He had transformed from a silent witness to a powerful advocate. "I'm not just breaking the silence," Marcus declared. "I'm breaking the cycle. For everyone who's been controlled, watched, and silenced. This is for you." The courtroom held its breath. A new chapter was unfolding, one where truth and justice would no longer be optional. The verdict was announced with a hush that swept through the courtroom like a sudden storm. Guilty on multiple counts: illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, coercion, and intimidation. The words hung heavy in the air, echoing far beyond the marble walls and into the lives of everyone who had followed the case. Marcus Thompson felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Years of fear, silence, and internal conflict had led to this moment. For the first time, justice wasn't just a distant hope. It was real. His testimony had shattered a fortress built on secrets and control. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for his words. Flashbulbs exploded in the bright sunlight, but Marcus remained composed. "This victory isn't just mine," he said, voice steady yet filled with emotion. "It belongs to everyone who's been watched, controlled, and silenced. To every artist and employee who lived in fear behind closed doors. This is the start of change." The case had exposed cracks in the glamorous facade of the entertainment world. What had once been dismissed as rumors and whispers was now undeniable truth. Investigations and reforms began rippling through the industry, promising accountability and transparency. Marcus knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The system that had protected those abuses was deeply entrenched. Powerful interests would resist, but the courage to speak had sparked a movement. Others were stepping forward, and the culture of silence was breaking. He looked back once, towards the courthouse steps where his story had first become public. There was no fanfare, no applause, just quiet resolve. The freedom he had fought for wasn't just about escaping fear. It was about confronting it head on. "My name is Marcus Thompson," he told the waiting crowd. "I stood up. And now, so will others." With that, he walked into the sunlight, not as a victim, but as a voice of change.